The year was 1990. Nelson Mandela and the AFC Congress had been recently released from prison. A few months after Nelson Mandela being released from prison, he toured the United States on a 10-day tour to raise money and political support for the fight against apartheid in South Africa. So I'm going to show you two different videos on tonight. This is Tyrone Bowman live. At that time, Dan Rather was the top anchor at CBS News. So I'm going back into the CBS archives. And you're going to see Mr. Mandela's, who went on to become the first black president of South Africa. You'll see him as he toured New York City. And later on, I'll show the other video where Nelson Mandela came before the United States Congress and addressed the nations of the world and the United States of America as well. Beside him was his wife, Minnie Mandela at the time, who stood solidly by his side for the 27 years that he was in prison, uncompromisingly. She was out on the front lines fighting for his cause. Now, let me make a brief announcement very quickly. I want to get this announcement in. I'll continue to make this announcement very quickly on every video until I reach my goal. We're in the process of building a professional Tyrone Bowman live studio because behind me there's a door. And for the past 3 years, I've basically been sitting in front of this door talking. But now, since the channel is growing, we have to become more professional looking. We've got to tighten up things. I can't continue to hold a camera up to the phone. And in an effort to do that, for those who are willing to help us, we'd appreciate it, because I've already contracted a professional graphic designer who's going to design our set for us. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be nice. And I think you all are going to love it. And then we'll get our microphones together. We're going to get everything that we need to make this a channel, a first-rate channel. We're not going anywhere. We're uncompromising. We're going to be here covering the stories that you like and the ones that hopefully that you'll find interest in. So if you'd like to help us, any amount will help us reach this goal. All you have to do is Cash App me at Tyrone Bowman Sr. Go to Cash App, and it is the $ Pixel, P-I-E-X-D-L, number 4. So some folk don't like to talk about money, but I don't have a problem talking about money because you need money to survive in this world. All right, let's go to the first video here with Dan Rather. There's some commercials, and I'll probably have to start subscribing to all YouTube's premium channels once we get our studio, because that way we won't have any commercial interruptions. But for now, I'm going to do what a brother's got to do. You heard?
This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. Nelson Mandela got a rousing welcome from the city of New York today as he began a 10-day tour across the United States. The former longtime political prisoner will address Congress and the United Nations, and he'll be received at the White House. This is the high point of Mandela's world trip, seeking money and political support for the fight against apartheid in South Africa. With a mixture of triumph and humility, Mandela arrived at John F. Kennedy Airport. To be greeted by hugs and handshakes and promises of help.
We must continue the use of sanctions and every other reasonable and effective device we can find until apartheid is only a terrible memory.
Mandela was pleased, urging the leaders to keep up sanctions against South Africa and bringing a message of hope.
Today we can say with confidence that we can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Would you take a Tesla Powerwall and brand new solar panel?
An effective device we can find until apartheid is only a terrible memory.
Mandela was pleased, urging the leaders to keep up sanctions against South Africa and bringing a message of hope.
Today we can say with confidence that we can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
On the drive through one of the poorest sections of Brooklyn and later at a high school, it was clear that Mandela is a hero to millions in America, too. And it was clear that he was having a good time. But that was nothing compared to the throngs of people who waited hours in the financial district for the traditional welcome New York gives heroes, a ticker tape parade. The first since the Mets won the World Series in 1986. Security for the visit is intense. The New York Police Department built a special Mandela mobile, bullet and rocket resistant. 12,000 police were on duty at a cost of $2 million in overtime, the tab picked up by the U.S. State Department. At New York City Hall, Mandela received the key to the city and gave a promise.
Apartheid is doomed. South Africa shall be free.
For many of the tens of thousands who came out to see Mandela today, it was a long-awaited, deeply emotional moment. Harold Dow has the story of some who were faces in the crowd.
All right, that's video number 1. While I'm going to the second video, let me just say this. The power of one sometimes is all it takes to ignite a movement. Many people are so afraid to stand up for something until they fall for anything. Did you know that Nelson Mandela was a South African trained lawyer? So he was nobody's idiot. He very well knew the Constitution. He very well knew that he was coming up against the imperialistic powers of racism, bigotry, and apartheid. But he had decided that enough was enough. You never know where your journey is going to take you, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody asked in the comment section, am I a judge? No, I'm a law student. Who knows? I may end up being a judge one day. I don't know. But right now, I'm studying to get that law degree, and I will have it soon. You'll know I have it because it'll be behind my name on my channel. All right, now let's go before the U.S. Congress. It was June of 1990. Nelson Mandela came to America.
Mr. Speaker, Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela back in 1990 before the U.S. Congress. At that time, he was the deputy president of the African National Congress. His wife, Winnie Mandela, she's in the gallery. Let's see, we got Nick Magahita Homburger in the house tonight.
Members of the Congress, it is my great privilege, and I deem it a high honor and personal pleasure, to present to you Mr. Nelson Mandela, Deputy President of the African National Congress. Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, esteemed members of the United States Congress, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, and members of the diplomatic corps, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a fact of the human condition that each shall, like a meteor, a mere brief passing moment in time and space, flit across the human stage and pass out of existence. Even the golden lads and lasses, as much as the chimney sweepers, come and tomorrow are no more. After them all, they leave the people enduring, multiplying, permanent, except to the extent that the same humanity might abuse its own genius to emulate life itself. And so we have come to Washington, in the District of Columbia, and into these hallowed chambers of the United States Congress, not as pretenders to greatness, but as a particle of a people whom we know to be noble and heroic, enduring, multiplying, permanent, rejoicing in the expectation and knowledge that their humanity will be reaffirmed and enlarged by open and unfettered communion with the nations of the world. We have come here to tell you, and through you, your own people, who are equally noble and heroic, of the troubles and trials, the fond hopes and aspirations of the people from whom we originate. We believe that we know it as a fact that your kind and moving invitation to us to speak here derived from your own desire to convey a message to our people.
Last decade, we've seen a huge proportion.
By open and unfettered communion with the nations of the world.
We have come here to tell you, and through you, your own people, who are equally noble and heroic, of the troubles and trials, the fond hopes and aspirations of the people from whom we originate. We believe that we know it as a fact.
Let me address Joe for a minute. You know, you're really stupid. Nelson Mandela is dead, you jackass. This video is from 1990. You know, some of you are so asinine and you're so dim-witted within your seared brains with drugs and alcohol and weed and everything else until you don't pay attention to what's being said. If you don't like what I do on this channel, take your asks and go someplace else. Is that plain enough for you? You don't have to come over here. I'm not going to bite my tongue. I'm not going to be submissive because I know the majority of you who come into the comment section, you're white, bigoted, racist people. And you think because I allow you to come on this channel that I'll take your crap. Well, this is a different day, a different age, and a different time. I'm showing this video of the late Nelson Mandela, who was the first black president of South Africa, for a reason. There was a time in America when politics had civility, honor, and decorum. And despite what's going on in this nation today, America is still a great nation, and it will continue to be a great nation, and it will get back to normal at some point in time. And meanwhile, back to the video.
That your kind and moving invitation to us to speak here derived from your own desire to convey a message to our people, and according to your humane purposes, to give them an opportunity to say what they want of you and what they want to make of their relationship with you. Our people demand democracy. Our country, which continues to bleed and suffer pain, needs democracy. It cries out for the situation where the law will decree that freedom to speak or freedom constitutes the very essence of legality and the very thing that makes for the legitimacy of the constitutional order. It thirsts for the situation where those who are entitled by law to carry arms as the forces of national security and law and order will not turn their weapons against the citizens simply because the citizens are set that equality, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are fundamental human rights which are not only inalienable but must, if necessary, be defended with the weapons of war. We fight for and visualize a future in which all shall, without regard to race, color, creed, or sex, have the right to vote and to be voted into all elective organs of state. We are engaged in struggle to ensure that the rights of every individual are guaranteed and protected through a democratic constitution, the rule of law, an entrenched Bill of Rights, which should be enforced by an independent judiciary.
If you're in the military, quit scrolling. This is for you.
These are fake AI videos. That's why I X them out.
To carry arms as the forces of national security and law and order will not turn their weapons against the citizens simply because the citizens are set that equality, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are fundamental human rights which are not only inalienable but must, if necessary, be defended with weapons of war. We fight for and visualize a future in which all shall, without regard to race, color, creed, or sex, have the right to vote and to be voted into all elective organs of state. We are engaged in struggle to ensure that the rights of every individual are guaranteed and protected through a democratic constitution, the rule of law, an entrenched Bill of Rights, which should be enforced by an independent judiciary, as well as a multi-party political system. Mr. Speaker, we are acutely conscious of the fact that we are addressing an historic institution for whose creation and integrity many men and women lost their lives in the War of Independence, the Civil War, and the war against Nazism and fascism. That very history demands that we address you with respect and candor and without any attempt to dissemble. What we have said concerning the political arrangements we seek for our country is seriously meant. It is an outcome for which many of us went to prison, for which many have died in police cells, on the gallows, in our towns and villages, and in the countries of Southern Africa. Indeed, we have even had our political representatives killed in countries as far away from South Africa as France. Unhappily, our people continue to die to this day, victims of armed agents of the state who are still determined to turn their guns against the very idea of a non-racial democracy. But this is the perspective which we trust Congress will feel happy to support and encourage, using the enormous weight of its prestige and authority as an eminent representative of democratic practice. To deny any person their human rights is to challenge their very humanity. To impose on them a wretched life of hunger and deprivation is to dehumanize them. But such has been the terrible fate of all black persons in our country under the system of apartheid. The extent of the deprivation of millions of people has to be seen to be believed. The injury is made that more intolerable by the opulence of our white compatriots and the deliberate distortion of the economy to feed that opulence. The process of the reconstruction of South African society must and will also entail the transformation of its economy. We need a strong and growing economy. We require an economy that is able to address the needs of all the people of our country, that can provide food, houses, education, health services, social security, and everything that makes human life human. That makes...
Let me just jump in here and say this regarding money. To my brothers and sisters, listen to your brother tonight. All the protesting, all the yelling, all the hollering, and all the screaming, it amounts to nothing if you don't have a money war chest to fight your enemies with. Don't you know that while you're sleeping and out there doing dumb stuff, your enemies are online recruiting people, raising hundreds of millions of dollars night and day for their nonprofit corporations? Where do you think MAGA is recruiting everybody from? Online. Understand the power of the black dollar. We are an economy within ourselves. And we can do more collectively together than we can apart. Remember that. I'm not interested in protesting or hollering and screaming. I'm interested in financial sovereignty, financial security, so I can get stuff done. It costs money to feed the hungry. It costs money to educate people. It costs money to rehab people. It costs money to get any and everything done in this world. And don't let anybody fool you. When Nelson Mandela came to America in 1990 of June, it was to raise money for his cause, and it was to raise money for his presidential campaign. That's why he came to America.
Life joyful and not a protracted encounter with hopelessness and despair. We believe that the fact of the apartheid structure of the South African economy and the enormous and pressing needs of the people make it inevitable that the democratic government will intervene in this economy, acting through the elected parliament. We have put the matter to the business community of our country that the need for a public sector is one of the elements in a many-sided strategy of economic development and restructuring that has to be considered by us all, including the private sector. The ANC holds no ideological positions which dictate that it must adopt a policy of nationalization. But the ANC also holds the view that there is no self-regulating mechanism within the South African economy which will, on its own, ensure growth with equity. At the same time, we take it as given that the private sector is an engine of growth and development, which is critical to the success of the mixed economy we hope to see in the future South Africa.
Here's why your knee pain keeps coming back, and the easiest way to fix it.
Committed to the creation of the situation in which business people, both South African and foreign, have confidence in the security of their investments, are assured of a fair rate of return on their capital, and do business in conditions of stability and peace. We must also make the point very firmly that the political settlement and democracy itself cannot survive unless the material needs of the people, the bread and butter issues, are addressed as part of the process of change and as a matter of urgency. It should never be that the anger of the poor should be the finger of accusation pointed at all of us because we fail to respond to the crisis of the people for food, to the cries of the people for food, for shelter, for the dignity of the individual. We shall need your support to achieve the post-apartheid economic objectives, which are an intrinsic part of the process of the restoration of the human rights of the people of South Africa. We would like to approach the issue of our economic cooperation not as a relationship between donor and recipient, between a dependent and a benefactor. We would like to believe that there is a way in which we structure this relationship so that we do indeed benefit from your enormous resources in terms of your capital, technology, all-round expertise, your enterprising spirit, and your markets. This relationship should, however, be one from which your people should also derive benefit, so that we who are fighting to liberate the very spirit of our entire people from the bondage of the arrogance of the ideology and practice of white supremacy, do not build a relationship of subservient dependency and fawning gratitude. One of the benefits that should accrue to both our peoples and to the rest of the world should surely be that this complex South African society, which has known nothing but racism for 3 centuries, should be transformed into an oasis of good race relations, where the black shall to the white be sister and brother, a fellow South African, an equal human being, both citizens of the world. To destroy racism in the world, we together must expunge apartheid racism in South Africa. Justice and liberty must be our tool. Prosperity and happiness, our weapon. Mr. Speaker, distinguished representatives of the American people, you know this more than we do, that peace is its own reward. Our own fate, born by a succession of generations that reach backwards into centuries, has been nothing but tension, conflict, and death. In a sense, we do not know the meaning of peace except in the imagination. But because we have not known true peace in its real meaning, because for centuries, generations have had to bury the victims we have fought for the right to experience peace. On the initiative of the ANC, the process towards the conclusion of a peaceful settlement has started. According to a logic dictated by our situation, we are engaged in an effort which includes the removal of obstacles to negotiations. This will be followed by a negotiated determination of the mechanism which will draw up the new constitution. This should lead to the formation of this constitution-making institution, and therefore the elaboration and adoption of a democratic constitution. Elections would then be held on the basis of this constitution, and for the first time, South Africa would have a body of lawmakers which would, like yourselves, be mandated by the whole people. Despite the admitted commitment of President de Klerk to walk this road with us, and despite our acceptance of his integrity and honesty of his purposes, we would be fools to believe that the road ahead of us is without major hurdles. Too many among our white compatriots are steeped in the ideology of racism to admit easily that change.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have to leave it right here for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow evening with part 2 of Nelson Mandela Coming to America, June of 1990. For now, I'm Tyrone Bowman. Never surrender, never quit.